All right, good morning everyone. We're about to get underway, so please stand by. Stand by, stand by. Good morning, good morning. Okay, welcome everyone. Those just joining us on Facebook and over on YouTube, welcome. We are just about to get underway for our Friday morning coffee chat and Q&A session. I'm going to cover this morning 5 keys to improving your painting, and you might want to write these down, so have a notepad and pen. I think you'll find them helpful. And then we're going to open it up to questions, anything you want to ask me at all. So have a think about what questions you would like to get answered. Good morning. How are you all? Morning, Miriam. Good morning. Good to see you. Hope you're well. G'day, John. Welcome, welcome. Let's give people time to join us on the live stream here. If you're over on YouTube, please say hi. Let us know you're here. G'day, Gladys on YouTube. Welcome. All right. We had a bit of fun this morning. I hope you've all got questions for me. I'll tell you a little bit about what I've been up to. And Mimi, hi Mimi, how are you? I'll tell you a little bit about what I've been up to and what we've got coming up as well with the Learn to Paint Academy. If you're joining me for the first time, my name is Rod. There it is right there, Rod Moore. I'm the founder of Learn to Paint Academy and the Moore Method of Painting. And this is our regular Friday morning coffee chat. Well, actually, it started out as the coffee chat. But herbal tea for me these days. I'm having licorice herbal tea this morning. Mimi's over on YouTube. Yes, good on you, Mimi. And if you stick around towards the end, I'll give you a link to a free painting course if you haven't already registered. So make sure you stick around for that. Morning, Heather. Good to see you. Miriam says, good to see you. Felt like forever without a live stream. You having withdrawals there, Miriam. But it's good that you can join us because I know you've been busy. Good morning, Richard. How are you, mate? Hope you're well down in Wood End. All right. So this morning we're going to cover 5 keys to improving your painting. 5 things that I've sort of have been really focused on in my own painting. And I'm going to share them with you for what it's worth. Hopefully you'll find it worth something, and it'll help you improve your painting as well. So we'll cover through that. I'll give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you have about painting or about building your business around art, and that could be selling art or teaching art. And I can't answer every question, but I'll do my very best to either answer it or find out the answer for you. So we should have a bit of fun. And I should mention that, okay, so I should mention that, good morning, Marg, good morning, Carol, how are you? Hope you're both well. Yeah, I should mention that I having a bit of a brain fog this morning. I've started climbing up the mountain in the bush behind me. It takes about an hour and 20 minutes, and probably bitten off more than I could chew, but anyway, yeah, I was going to mention we had a great time with our 3-day plein air workshop last week, which we did here in Noosa, and had a fun time. I'll show you a couple of paintings from there. And had a good little group of people. So I might do that again. Might do that again, maybe not in November. Because November was pretty damn hot out on the beach. This one's one we did in Mooloolaba. And as you can see, I didn't finish painting the sky right up. I'm going to actually cut the board ran about through there, and whoop, there we go. And a little bit of work to do on that one, but that's Mooloolaba looking back towards the headland there. That was a fun little painting. And this one, we did this one on our live stream the other day, if you caught our live stream, but that's near the river mouth of Noosa, and I like that little scene. So I'm going to work on both of those two and get those finished off and pop them in a frame, and I think I'll keep those because I thought they came up reasonably well. So yeah, so we had a fun workshop, 3 days in Noosa. We had people come from all over Australia, so WA and New South Wales and a few around Queensland, and it was fun and a very enjoyable experience. So out of that, there's a possibility that I will be coming to Perth or WA next week, and not next week, come on brain, early next year maybe around about March, and doing 4 or 5 one-day workshops over there, and maybe a 2-day plein air workshop as well. So look out for that, and I'll keep you posted with that. But if you're in WA and you weren't on our live stream on Wednesday, just let me know if that would be of interest to you. And I'm working with an art group over there who have a number of locations, so we'll see how that pans out, and I'll keep you posted, which would be pretty exciting if we do that. And yeah, I'll keep you posted on that. Good morning, Peter Shaw. Good to see you, mate. Haven't seen you for a while. Hope you're well. Morning, Yvonne. Miriam says, wow, really nice painting. Yeah, I was pretty happy with them, given that it was a demonstration for a group, and it was hot as. It was really hot on the beach. So I was pretty happy with how they turned out, and I think with a little bit of work they'll come up okay and look good in the frame. So thank you for that, Miriam. All right, now I've got my 5 little points I want to raise with you, but just give me 1 second. I hope you've all got questions. Have you all got questions? Because for the best question, somebody's going to win a coffee mug today, and I'm going to pick the best question, the question I like the best, and I don't have any plan on how I'm going to pick that question, pick that winner, but just the one that resonates with me the best. Good morning, Valerie. Now, hey guys, if you're over on the Facebook group, the Learn to Paint in Oils and Acrylics group, I'm not going to monitor the comments there because there's just too many different places to monitor the comments. So you might want to rejoin over on our Facebook page for the Learn to Paint Academy. So just be aware of that, because I know I have missed comments on our live streams previously, because if I share it to too many places, then I just can't monitor it all live. So just be aware of that. Okay, so good morning, Rose in Tassie. Good on you. Good to have somebody join us from Tassie. Welcome. Okay, so I'm going to go through my five keys to improve your painting. I hope you've all got a pen and paper. Now, I've mentioned these 5 things many times in all the courses and the projects that we do, so these should be very familiar for you, but I thought I'd summarize it into 5 principles, I guess, for improving your painting. And these are things that I've been really trying to focus in with my own painting. This isn't the definitive list. There's a whole lot of other things, like, for instance, I don't have brush work on this list, but that's pretty important. But these are the things that I think are fundamentally what can help us improve our painting. And I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. So, you ready for number 1? If you're ready for number 1, just type in yes. This is called a professional pause while I have a drink of my cup of tea. Or hit the hearts if you're on Facebook, or type in yes, just so I know that you're listening. I'm not just talking to myself. Or yeah, just type in yes if you're ready to get the number 1 way to improve your painting. While I drink my tea. I'm having licorice tea this morning. So I don't know whether we should change the name of the Friday morning coffee chat to Friday morning herbal tea chat and Q&A. That doesn't have the same ring though, does it? All right, Carolyn and Marg both say yes, they're ready for point number 1, so I'm going to share it with you too. Marit, it's good evening for me, question. Okay, I tell you what, Marit, we're going to hold off on questions until I cover these 5 points. So I'll come back to questions towards a bit later on in the live stream. If I don't get to your question, please ask it again, but I do appreciate your question very much. So I'll get to that just shortly, in just a short period of time. All right, so Carolyn, Marg, and Yvonne, you guys have said yes. So here is tip number one, or number one key to improve your painting. Drum roll, please. And Heather as well. I'll share this with Heather. Good morning, Rosalie. Good morning, Andrea. Herbal Tea Chat doesn't have the same ring. No, it does not, Miriam. Oh, well, such is life, eh? Anyway, number one key to improving your painting, I think, is to start with big shapes and work your way towards little shapes. And this, for me, has made my life with painting so much easier, because I used to look at a subject and I get overwhelmed with details and information and not know where to start or finish. So once I understood that, because what happens is we look at things in too much detail, so we chunk down into the details, and it's very hard to paint a painting if you're focusing on leaves, twigs, blades of grass, pebbles on a beach. It's very hard to construct a good quality painting focused down in those details. So when I learned to chunk up to the big shapes, my painting improved a lot. And you've heard me talk about this time and time again, right? That we've got to identify the big shapes. And one of the principles I learned from an early mentor of mine, Jim Rohn, he wasn't an artist as far as I know, he was a business person. And one of the principles I learned from him is that it doesn't matter what field of endeavor you have, anything you want to be successful in, there's usually about a half a dozen things that makes 80 or 90% of the difference in your results, right? So if you want to run an art business, what are the half dozen things? Well, there's creating great artwork, there's marketing, there's sales, there's administration, right? So there's not many things if you chunk up high enough. So he said there's half a dozen things that makes 80 to 90% of the difference in results. And so I applied that to the shapes in a painting, and I realized that if I could work out half a dozen shapes maximum, big shapes, then it was much easier to be able to work out your composition and to get your drawing in. And this is basically a principle we've been teaching as part of the Moore method of painting now for the last 5 years, right? So if you have a look at this little painting behind me, there's really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 big shapes, right? It's very rarely that I actually end up with a painting that I have 6 big shapes. And if you've got more than 6 big shapes, then you need to chunk up higher, right, to a higher level. And this changed my painting completely. It gave me a starting point. When I was looking, if I went out plein air painting and I was looking at a subject in front of me, it became overwhelming. And I noticed this in our 3-day plein air workshop that we just did in Noosa last weekend, that some people became overwhelmed because they were looking at everything, right, rather than highlighting or honing in on a few big shapes, okay? Which is why one of the paintings I did, I picked out this subject. I mean, there was a million subjects down at the river, but I picked out this subject because I wanted to really highlight the fact that there's only a handful of big shapes, right? So the big shapes in this is obviously this little headland here. There's another one behind it, right? So that's 1, 2. There's this water mass here, that's 3. There's the sky, which you call 4, but there's a cloud in there, so maybe 5 big shapes, right? And so this painting I did as a demo for them was to say, hey, here's how you pinpoint the big shapes. So that's the first key to improve your painting. Big shapes to little shapes, okay? Once you've got your big shapes, you can then start picking out smaller shapes within those, but start with your big shapes. Okay, so key number 2 to improve your painting. This goes hand in hand with big shapes and little shapes, right? And some of you should be able to predict what I'm going to say here, but it's big brush to little brush. And I can't tell you how many times I've been in workshops where people want to pick up the small brush rather than the big brush. And really, you should be doing 80, 90% of your painting with a big brush. not a small brush, right? Because small brush, you immediately get down into finicky details. You start getting into small shapes. So start with a big brush and get 80 to 90% of your painting done with a bigger brush, right? And so hopefully you've all been watching our courses and our projects, but I'm using these. Now I used to use a lot of my projects I had a smaller size one of these. This is a gesso brush, but basically what it is, it's a flat brush with hog hairs, right? So this is what I've been using lately because I find these quite good, but these are still too small. I'd like to get one that's sort of double that size. And if you can do 80% of your painting with big brushes, it'll stop you fiddling, right? Stop you fiddling, and it'll help you improve your painting. Trust me. You want to, especially in the early parts of a painting development, you want to get your painting down quickly, the blocking stage. So you need to cover a lot of canvas, you need a lot of paint, big brush, right? Hello, Molly. Molly's under my feet again, as always. So yeah, big brush to little brush, right? So number one, big shapes to little shapes. Number two, big brush to little brush. Okay, so that brings me to number three. Number three, this throws a few people because especially if you're an acrylic painter and you started out learning to paint in acrylics from another source, so you didn't start learning with the Learn to Paint Academy, which happens, right? Chances are good you're approaching your painting from a different perspective. And so when I learned to paint, what made most sense to me was I found a few traditional landscape artists that I learned from. Kevin McPherson was one of them, right? And he would paint dark to light, and a lot of traditional oil painters, dark to light. Now, part of the reason for doing that is because oil paint works best dark to light. If you're painting watercolor, you're painting light to dark. So it's the complete reverse. A lot of people with acrylics, though, are confused because they tend to paint like a watercolor approach, right? Or they just don't have a working plan at all. So darks to light. If you approach your painting by getting your darks in first and then progressively working back in value to lights, then you will find that your painting structure will work better. So you've seen this in every project we do. We paint in our darks first, then we get in our middle values, then our lighter values, right? It's a good working methodology. It works best with oils. If you're trying to paint oil landscapes and you try and put in a light sky and then paint darks over that for trees, you'll know that that's a challenge, right? It's very difficult. But it's easy the other way around. So a lot of traditional oil painters will paint dark to light, and the way we teach at the Learn to Paint Academy is to translate that into acrylics, paint dark to light in acrylics as well. That way, the reason why I teach it that way is so that you can, if you're an acrylic painter, you start out learning with us and you want to go and try water mixable oils, the same working methodology applies, right? So that's number three, darks to lights. Is this making sense so far? Let me know yes if this is making sense. I just thought it'd be handy to have a like a checklist of key principles for improving your paintings. So I might put this together on a nice chart for you all, and you can print it out and put it up on the wall in your studio. So I might work on that. So darks to lights. So we've got big shapes to little shapes, big brush to little brushes, darks to lights, and then the next one is thin paint to thick paint. And again, I observed this in our workshop in Noosa just this gone week, right? That there's a tendency to not understand paint consistency, how to thin paint down, when to use thin paint, when to use thick paint. And you can get away with it in acrylics, as long as you know when to let it dry, the acrylics. However, you can't get away with getting the order and sequence wrong with oils so much, okay? So as a general principle, you're better off to start with thin paint and work towards thick paint. And when you're doing your drawing in your initial placement of your big shapes, you want to use very thin paint for that. You don't want that showing through into the picture later on. So start out with thin paint and work towards thick paint. It'll make your life easier, right? Make your life easier. And especially if you're going to paint alla prima, and so alla prima means to complete a painting in one sitting, which is what we do plein air, right? Even though, these paintings are only 60 or 70%, right? But they've still done alla prima. I've still put lights over darks in this painting, right? And the same with the Mooloolaba one, right? Well, you can see this better example here. If you have a look at the rocks here, which way do I need to go? That way. If you have a look at the rocks there, right? And this is the Mooloolaba headland with the lighthouse in the background there. But if you have a look at those rocks, you can see I put highlights over darks, right? I couldn't have done that if the darks were done in thick paint. So I've used very thin paint for the darks. And then by the time I work around the painting and come back to then do the highlights, those darks are pretty much dry. So you've got to know when to use thin paint and when to use thick paint. But as a general rule, if you start dark to light and you also start thin to thick, right, then that means by definition that your darks are going to be a thinner paint than what your lights are going to be. Does that make sense? Principle number 3 was we're going to start it with our darks and mass those in. We're going to get lighter. But principle number 4 is we're going to paint thin through to thick, right? So therefore, by the virtue of the fact that we're following those 2 principles, it means that our darks are going to be thinner paint. By the time I work back around to doing highlights or midtones and then highlights, those darks are generally dry. Okay, so that's a handy thing. That's what you want. Okay, so let me just check in and see how everyone's going because I've been talking for a while. Thanks for your question, Valerie. I'll come back to it. If I don't find it in the comments here, please re-ask it. Miriam saying herbal tea chat doesn't have the same ring. No, it doesn't. Q&A tea with Rod. Yeah, I don't know. Good morning, Colin. No worries, mate. Hope you have a great day. Morning, Duran. Carolyn says, I find this so helpful, I never know where to start. Well, now you do. Find your big shapes and then follow these principles, right? Cool. Thank you, John. John says it's a great piece with the rocks. It's not bad. I'm pretty happy with it as a demonstration and the fact that we were, under pretty hot, humid conditions. Martine McFarlane, hello from Glasgow. G'day, how are you? Just after 11 p.m. I appreciate you being here for our live chat. Live hat. Very funny. Gladys, the big brushes have stopped me fiddling. Good. My pleasure. I'm glad that's helped, Gladys. Yeah, because I see so many beginners, even when I was doing one-day workshops and I was very step-by-step, I'm very particular, do this, do that. And if I looked away, people would gravitate to small brushes and start fiddling. And I don't know why. I just can't work out why. But yeah, if you follow big brush principle, or follow all these principles, it'll improve your painting dramatically. So thanks for that feedback, Gladys. I appreciate it. Virginia tuning in from Nova Scotia. G'day, Virginia. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Rose. How are you? All right. So, where are we up to? G'day, Tracy Parker. Good to see you again. So, let me recap so I know where I'm up to. Number 1, big shapes to little shapes. Number 2, big brush to little brush. Number 3, darks to lights. So, therefore, you've got your midtones in between. Thin to thick paint is number 4. And number 5, Duran's saying, can you show it again, please? What on earth just happened there? Hopefully you can all still hear me. G'day, Joyce in Texas. Welcome. My screen just went blank for a bit, so there it is again for you, Duran. Now, this is just a little demo that I did. It needs a bit of work, and I'm going to cut the board right through there, so it's only going to be that tall. Oh, there it is. There you go. All right. Yvonne says, it's great to be reminded of these points. Good, Yvonne. I'm glad that they're helpful. And I think having a bit of a summary of them as well is probably helpful as well. Evelyn, any tips? Well, Evelyn, we'll come back to questions in a moment. So if I don't find your questions in the comments, please do re-ask it. Good morning, Darlene. Hope you're well. Miriam says, I think small brushes make beginners feel like they have more control. That's a good point, yeah. And don't we love to try and control a painting when we're starting, for sure. I agree, 100% big brushes are the way to go. Thank you for that, Miriam. Rosalie, all good at my end? Okay, cool. I'm not really sure everyone's talking about that. Alliance for Natural Health. Oh, you've accidentally tagged someone into your comments. Got it. That can happen. No, I won't teach that one, Duran. That's one we did in our 3-day workshop we just had in Noosa. That was a project we did with them on location. Okay. Right, number 5, tip. Now, as I said, there's plenty more. These are just ones that came to mind while I was out on my walk through the bush this morning. And I think these ones are pretty important. But number five is licorice tea. It's awesome. Number 5 is focal point. Put your details at your focal point and have your harder edges at your focal point. Rather than, and again, this is something I've observed through doing lots of workshops and seeing lots of students' paintings, and having made this mistake myself so many times, is putting your details at the focal point rather than detailing up the entire image that you're rendering. If you equally detail everything up, then there's nowhere for the eye to land on the painting, right? If you have a focal point and you put most of your details around the focal point and you less details around the non-focal part area, then it'll draw the eye into that focal point. And so you want your harder edges around that focal point as well. You don't want hard edges in places of the painting where you don't want the eye to settle and be drawn to. Your focal point. That's where your details go. Don't detail up everything equally. Okay? So there are 5 points. I'll recap them, give you one more chance to write them down, unless you feel compelled to watch the replay. Number 1, big shapes to little shapes. Number 2, big brush to little brush. Number 3, darks to lights. Number 4, thin paint to thick paint. Number 5, focal point details and edges. Does that make sense? Let me know if that makes sense. Let me know. There are a few others I can think of. Composition, obviously, you could include in that. But I think those 5 are probably pretty good principles to improve your painting by. John says, poster format is what I use in class. Okay. I'm not sure what poster format is. I just meant like typing it up onto a piece of paper. Maybe that's the same thing as poster format. But yeah, I was just going to type them up so you can print it out and put it up on your edges. You don't know what I mean by edges? Well, edges are everywhere. Wherever two shapes intersect, you have edges. So you've got this background shape of this headland here, right? And then you've got this foreground shape of this rock and grass here. Okay. So if this is my focal point here, I want to have the edge here where these 2 shapes intersect. I want to have sharper edges in here. Okay. I don't want the eye to focus over here, so I want the edges along here to be blurred out, less defined. Okay, so that's what I mean by edges. You can see I've got this tree here where I've just softened out the edges, the intersecting point between the tree and the sky. I've made that really soft, but then I want the eye coming in more here, so I've got harder edges there, harder edges there, harder edges there. This is where I want the eye to come in here, harder edges, but soft edges where I don't want the eye settling, okay? So I hope that helps. Who asked that question? Carolyn, I hope that helps, getting an understanding of edges. If you're doing like landscapes and you are doing, a little farmhouse or something, then the farmhouse is going to have some harder edges, but only if it's the focal point, right? So if it's not the focal point, it's just a background, you want to have soft edges around the focal point, okay? So that's what we mean there. So thanks for the question. Miriam agrees with all those important things. Thank you, Miriam. Nice to have your agreement there. Andrea, sounds good. Thank you, Andrea. Yep. John, I have those in A4 and A3 sizes. Okay, cool. Thank you, Rosalie. Carolyn, no worries. Great points from Ron, no worries, John. Okay, so where are we up to? G'day, Dennis. Is it Dennis or Denise? Might be, or is it Lynn? Anyway, over in Perth, g'day. Good chance we'll be coming over to Perth soon to do some workshops, so look out for that. G'day, Joyce. Friday morning sip and chat. Yeah, but that could be sipping something else though, Gladys. Mariette says it's making sense. That's good. Thank you, Mariette. Where is the best placement on the canvas to put the focal point? Well, Gladys, I think... So I'm going to open up the questions now. So start typing in your questions. And the best question judged by me, because I've got the prize, I'm going to send you a coffee mug. So Gladys's question, where is the best placement on the canvas for your focal point? Well, I think, in simplistic terms, that comes down to composition. But if I'll draw this up for you. I released a video last week on composition ideas. Okay, but the most basic and the most well-known one is the rule of thirds, the intersecting points of the rule of thirds. So here's my little canvas, right? There, rectangular canvas, we're doing a landscape. If you divide the canvas in thirds, horizontally and vertically, where the third lines intersect is where, typically a lot of painters, a lot of photographers will place their focal point. This is where we want the eye to be drawn. So we put a little cottage there, right on the focal point there, right? Now, if you're going to put your focal point on the lower, then you're probably going to have more sky. If you put your focal point up here, unless it's a cloud, you're probably going to have less sky. Okay, so that's probably the easiest way to determine where to put the focal point. So the rule of thirds is a really simple way. Now, I did release a video last week, I think it was, called one of the Art Studio chat videos on our YouTube channel, and also on the learntopaint.online blog, where I talk about different compositional structures, which can then determine where your focal point is going to go. So good question, Gladys. That's where I'd start off using the rule of thirds to place your focal point. Good question. Good question. Okay, where are we up to here? Got to figure out what page I'm on. Pauline's making a suggestion. RT time, or arty time. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, Pauline. I think we'll stick with coffee chat for the moment, though. But yeah, arty time. Well, I've got my podcast, the Art of Soul podcast. So it's close to that. Evelyn says she'll be ordering classes soon. Well, thank you, Evelyn. Come and join the club. We've got thousands of students around the world who are happily learning to paint. So come and join us, yeah. Miriam says sip and chat. Yeah, see, I don't drink alcohol anymore either. So I could sip water or herbal tea. But sip and chat's not a bad idea. It actually is. There's quite a number of different little painting schools around the world that do sip and chat painting classes. It's not really focused on painting. They might do a 2-hour session and they drink wine and chat and then do a bit of painting during that time. So yeah, it's not really a painting, like, you know, I'm trying to teach fundamentals of painting here. Sip and chat painting workshops are more about social fun with a bit of painting. But yeah, no doubt, Miriam, given that it's probably Thursday night for you, you are probably sipping and chatting right now. Duran, how do we win your mug? You win the mug by asking the most intriguing question, and I get to judge who is the winner. There's no absolute right way of judging with that criteria, but if you ask the most intriguing, challenging question, you very well might be the winner, Duran. We've had lots of people win coffee mugs and so on. Miriam, my question is about posting work for sale. Good question. I like these questions. I got feedback from someone that bought a painting from Facebook and suggested I have the same paintings on my website and eBay. Should I have the same paintings listed on both? That's a really good question. So we've been talking a bit over the last few months about strategies for starting to sell your painting, right? And I've recommended that eBay is probably the easiest and fastest way to start getting sales. Not necessarily the best prices, but turning over demo paintings regularly, small paintings, practice paintings regularly, turning them back into cash so you can reinvest in art supplies and Learn to Paint Academy courses, right, or membership. So Miriam's asking, should I have the same paintings on both? Well, my philosophy is that, and I've talked about this before, you want to have some paintings that you auction at 99 cents, right? So that's going to be a 7-day or a 10-day auction. So probably not a lot of point in putting those up on your website or anywhere else. I use those ones as ways of generating interest. Like a retail store has a loss leader. They discount the Coca-Cola and put it out the front. So, I've used about 25 to 30% of my listings on eBay have been 99 cent auctions. That doesn't mean they all sell for that. Often they get bid up. Sometimes I do sell for that. And I use it as a way of attracting interest, right? And then I have a middle point, 25 to 30% of those paintings on eBay. I have them from, say, $50 to $120 range, right? So would you put those up on your own website? Probably not, right? I might post them up on my Facebook page and say, hey, like you've been doing, Miriam, I bought one of Miriam's paintings because she posted it to her Facebook page and said, this one's available and this is how much it is, right? She made an offer. So I bought it. I might post those $50 to $100 and something ones. I'd probably put them onto Facebook, but probably wouldn't put them onto my website and my online galleries. But anything above, say, $200, I would have on eBay, I would have on my Facebook page, I'd have it on my website, and I'd have it on online galleries. So that's the sort of mix that I would work on. So I hope that answers your question. I'll just go back and find your question. All I can see Miriam typing in now is something about drunk partying. Oh, drunk painting. It's fun, yeah. So if you're doing the lower dollar value auctions as a way of generating interest, you probably don't have time to get them onto your website. I've got anything above, say, $150, $200, then you want to put it on every location you can, right? And I should say one other thing about listing paintings. I sold one yesterday or the day before, which when I first moved here to Noosa 4 years ago, I did, of Noosa River, and couldn't find a buyer for it. But 4 years later, right, somebody's found it and bought it. So patience sometimes is important with this, yeah. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Carolyn says more art and coffee. Yeah, that could work. Valerie says lots of sense, Rod. Good. Duran, CC time, coffee and chat. Yeah, reminds me of the old Elvis song, CC Rider. Wasn't really Elvis song though, was it? Where are we up to? Gladys, it's evening here, so I'm sipping herbal tea too. Good for you, Gladys. We can start the Herbal Tea Painters Club. Rose says, how to price your paintings. Now this comes up pretty much every time we do a live stream. So I actually did, if you go and look on our Facebook page, Learn to Paint Academy, and look under videos, I did a whole hour and a bit long chat about how to start selling your artwork. And of course, as part of that, pricing is important, right? Now, my views on pricing upsets a lot of artists, right? Because I have a view that we operate in an economic environment, we operate in a commercial marketplace where the laws of supply and demand operate. Art is no different from any other product out in the marketplace. And the people who buy art, typically, they're making decisions about whether to go on a holiday, save for their holiday, or buy this piece of art, right? Or whether to buy a new dress or buy this piece of art. And so because we operate in an economic environment, rather than some artists think we live in this magical world where art has its own prices, way of pricing itself, I think as an economic marketplace, we have to understand basic laws of supply and demand, right? So when you are starting out, you start out completely unknown with no following and therefore no demand for your artwork. So it's like a ladder to climb, right? Bottom of the ladder is zero. You give your art away, right, to family and friends. Top of the ladder, your art's selling for millions of dollars. In your own lifetime, that's a pretty hefty achievement, right? And very few people ever get there. So our objective when we're starting out learning to paint and then starting to sell our artwork is to work our way up the ladder. And the only way we can work our way up the ladder is to increase the demand for our artwork till it eventually gets to a point where it outstrips supply. And, that's reality, right? So you have to build demand for your artwork. Most artists make the mistake of they join all these different art groups on Facebook, and there's nothing wrong with that, but then they take a photo of their new painting that they've just done, they pop it up onto all these different groups, and then they wonder why they don't sell anything, right? Because they're not marketplaces. So you need to take your art to a marketplace where people go to buy artwork, right? And if you're starting down the bottom of the ladder, which is where most of us are, right? My average price point now is around about $400, right? But when I started 6 years ago, it was about $20. And I've just been working my way up the ladder, right? Two ways to increase the demand. One is to build an audience for yourself that you can talk to over and over and over and over again. Build your own audience. Don't try and piggyback off someone else's audience or think that if there's a group that's already pre-existing on Facebook, like one of the art groups, that's an audience. That's not an audience. You need an audience that follows you, right? If you get an audience, that will increase demand for your artwork. And the other way is to become a better artist, right? To make your art so good that it attracts attention. So you need to increase the value of your work and climb the ladder by building demand for your own work, right? That involves sales, promotion, and so on. So for those of you who are interested, I did a 1 hour plus conversation on how to get started with selling your artwork. What I'll do is I'll repost that into our Facebook page, Learn to Paint Academy. So if you're on YouTube, make sure you go over to Facebook and join our Learn to Paint Academy page, and you can watch that video. I'll repost it as soon as we finish here. If you want to take it further and learn more in depth on how to start selling your artwork, in particular online, I've got a 12-week coaching program. So you can message me about that. We're about to start off a new group, and I only ever take 4 or 5 people into that at any one time, so I can spend maximum time helping you out. We're about to start a new group in a week or two for those people who want to start seriously selling their artwork in 2020. And this is a 12-week, really in-depth program. I'll get on the phone with you and help you out, right? And really dig deep into it. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Message me and I'll show you where you can get registered for that. Okay, so who asked that? Rose. So Rose, hope that helps. And I highly recommend watching that 1 hour video, which I'll post to our Facebook page. Denise says, Rod, what would you suggest for finishing off a painting with, say, a gloss or a matte finish? I typically use a gloss varnish, and I typically use a spray varnish. I just find that easiest. Give it a couple of coats, and that's usually what I do. I know some people will go to greater lengths and very carefully brush it on. I'm kind of an impulsive person, so Denise, I use a spray gloss varnish and give it a couple of coats outside, right? Very important to do it outside. Okay. Where am I up to? So I'm just backtracking here to try and find, I know Evelyn asked a question, I'm going to go back and find that. Here we are. No, where are you? Any tips on fixing mistakes? Yes, I got lots of tips on fixing mistakes. Get a palette knife and scrape back the mistake and repaint it. Which I used to be terrified of doing. So get over it, right? Just start to understand that you can just wipe it back and repaint it if it doesn't work. And once you start doing that, it'll free you up, right? I used to be terrified of doing it for some reason. I think part of fixing mistakes, of course, is to improve your skills. And a lot of our courses and projects, I leave the mistakes I make in. I don't edit them out. The reason why I do that is because I want you to see how I struggle with mistakes and how I fix them. Okay. Scrolling through here, I've lost my way a bit. Okay, Andrew's asked a question, how do you know if when a painting is good enough to sell? Okay, well that ties in with this conversation here, doesn't it? My attitude is, if you're happy with it, then and you want to start selling, not everyone wants to sell their work, by the way, but if you're happy with it and you want to start selling your work, go to a marketplace where you can start at the bottom of the ladder and work your way up, right? And you'll find out whether it's good enough to sell because the marketplace will tell you. There's no way for you and I to know. We as the artists don't get to, we shouldn't be judging our own artwork. We should just make the artwork, make it available for sale and move on, right? The market will tell you whether it's good enough to sell, and the market will tell you where you fit on this ladder. And I can tell you where, if you're just starting out, we all fit down the bottom here somewhere, right? Do small paintings, sell them for $20 or $30 and do that over and over until you get better, and then you start doing bigger paintings, better paintings, and you work your way up the ladder, right? So let the marketplace tell you. eBay is the greatest place to start selling your artwork, and then you'll get feedback from the market. There's things to learn about selling on eBay, but there's things to learn about selling anywhere you go, right? So you have to increase your knowledge on selling effectively. But that's what I do. I wouldn't even ask the question, how do you know? Don't seek validation from other artists or family and friends. They're irrelevant to the conversation of selling. As soon as you start to have the desire to sell your artwork, you move into the world of the commercial art world, right? Where people exchange money for your art. So let the marketplace tell you. And the market will pretty quickly determine the value of your artwork. There's a group that I'm involved in on Facebook with a lot of semi-professional artists, and there's a lot of very experienced artists, and some of them never sell their work and they can't work out why, and I know why. It's because the price they've got on their artwork, right? If they were to halve their price, they would start to sell because their work's very good, but there's no demand for that particular artist at that particular price. So they could dramatically increase their sales overnight if they would just readjust their thinking around price. But some artists have got this idea that their artwork somehow is worth some magical figure, because what the mistake we make is we look at other artists and we compare. My work looks about the same as theirs and they're selling theirs for $1,000. I'm going to make mine $1,000, which is complete and utter illusional thinking, right? The reason why this person's got their work at $1,000 is probably because they've been in 25 solo exhibitions. They've been represented in major galleries around the world. There's a reason why they're, and are they even selling their artwork at that price? So we have to take a view of commercial realities when selling anything, right? Anything. So I hope that helps, Andrea. Again, I wouldn't even question whether it's good enough. I would just put it in the marketplace with a price point on it and see what happens. Jeraine says, any chance of a live group face-to-face to meet each other over plein air? Well, that's what we did last week in Noosa, Jeraine. We had a 3-day workshop in Noosa. Probably not going to do that again for some time, but we will do another 2 or 3 day plein air workshop on the Sunshine Coast maybe early next year, probably around March, April, and then I'm off to Europe for a period of time. So so you're welcome to come and join us in the next workshop, which we'll put up. Valerie, focal point, where the eyes are drawn to, and yes, sharper edges can make them stand out. Yes, good point. Thank you, Valerie, for that. Miriam, okay, yes, answers my question. Thank you, Sandra. Good morning. Good morning, Sandra. Hope you're well. Andrea says, I mean. Okay, it's probably related. Okay, not quite sure there, Andrea. Valerie, I hope I answered your question, Andrea. Please re-ask it if I haven't. Valerie, how do I get vibrant colours from the 5 colours, please? Well, it depends on what you mean by vibrant colours, but if you want colours to jump out, then you need to grey everything else off, right? So the colours you want to jump out need to be more highly saturated, but that needs to be surrounded by desaturated colour. That's what will make your colours pop out a lot more. So that's what I'd suggest there, Valerie. Evelyn, I've been doing your video on Welsh farmhouse. I have a terrible tree there in the front. Okay, well, there are some paintings that that just don't work, so do another one, right? If the tree's too big and it's too unfixable, then paint the whole thing out with gesso and have another go. Or just start a new painting. And so my basic approach has always been to do a painting and then to try and learn 1 or 2 things from that painting and take that forward into the next painting. So I'd maybe have a suggestion that depends on how big your tree is and how bad it is and whether it can be saved or not. Carolyn, water soluble paint. So thinning it with water does not cause the paint to unbinding of the paint. Not as far as I know, Carolyn. I don't believe that that's the case, that there's any unbinding of the pigment using water soluble or water mixable oil paints. I haven't read anything about that, and I haven't noticed any issues with my paintings that I've been doing. But if that's a concern for you, you can buy thinner, right? So I use the Artisan brand. Just use their thinner. Every paint manufacturer is going to have a medium. I use water because I'm trying to avoid all solvents and chemicals and things for health reasons, right? So if that's a concern for you, just use whatever medium comes with the water mixable oils, and just use water to clean your brush. But I haven't noticed any issues whatsoever with the paintings I'm doing. Heather says, Rod, when moving to painting on extra large canvas or board, do you think I should just paint a bigger, more panoramic view of my subject, or just use a larger brush? Well, I think when you're scaling up to much bigger canvases, you need to you have to approach it differently. You can't just block in the same way. So if this is a 16 by 20, if I block in that shadow in there, right, and I make up a mix of dark, if that was twice as big, because we're going to a much bigger canvas, you can't just use one mix over an area that size. So now we need to make our darks warmer and cooler, and there's much more to it than just replicating what you've done on a bigger scale. I think you need to approach the way you go about painting it differently, and you need a lot more detail work obviously in there as well. So I think it's more complex than just saying, well, I painted it this big, now I'm going to triple the size. It definitely requires a different approach. So which probably will be difficult to explain in much detail on here, but I think you need to think about it differently, yeah. So thanks for that, Heather. Cindy, can we see a close-up of the painting? You mean this painting here? Well, I can get, if that's the one you mean, Cindy, that one's still being worked on and it's quite wet, so I won't move it. But if you want a close-up, hang on. If I come in here, I might be able to give you a close-up. I don't want a close-up of me. Get out of there, Rod. There's still a bit of work to go on it. There you go. I hope that's the one you mean. A bit scary getting a close-up of me, that's for sure. Okay, hope that's what you meant, Cindy. Rosalie, Rod, do you edit your own videos or do you send them? I edit my own videos. I've always edited my own videos. I actually enjoy the creative process of editing. But what I have done is I've streamlined my editing over time, so it's far more efficient. I tend to edit a lot of it as I go because I've got a more advanced video recording system here. But you know, like if you're just starting out selling online courses and videos, I wouldn't be paying somebody to edit them. I'd be doing it myself. So there's good software like Movavi that you can use that's not expensive that you can use. Yeah, good question though, Rosalie. Where we're up to, I'll just pop over to YouTube. What brand of gloss spray do you use? I've got no idea, Denise. I buy it at the local art supplies store, and I haven't got a can here, unfortunately. But you know, just any of them. I never even look what brand it is, to be honest. It's just a can of gloss varnish spray, so I can't answer that, I'm afraid. The juice always make a print, so if you hit it big, you always got the rights to the original image. Yeah, well, you need good quality photography of your artwork, definitely. And when you sell your art, you don't sell the copyright with it, so that's a good point, the juice. Denise, is there such a thing as a liquid clear for acrylic painting? Liquid clear, I mean, it depends. It depends on what brand of acrylic paint you're talking about. They all come up with these amazing different mediums. I mean, for the Artilia range, I've got 30 different, well, maybe not 30, that's an exaggeration. Yeah, there's so many. This one's liquefying medium, you know, and there's a whole lot of them. So it depends on what brand you're talking about, Denise. Very well maybe. Liquid clear, that almost sounds like a Bob Ross kind of thing. But yeah, it could be. It could be. I'm not entirely sure why you're asking. Is it something you want to use or you've been told to use by someone? I'm not sure. Rose, I use old canvases to try a painting first, then I'm more free and don't worry so much about mistakes. Yeah, that's a good point, Rose. Try out a painting, just doing it as a sketch type of thing. Get your confidence up, or even using a sketchbook, you know, like this. I just sketch out little compositions. So it's a good point. Thanks for that, Rose. All right. Where are we? Cindy says, yes, that's it. I love it. Well, if you love it that much, Cindy, contact me and we can work out a price for it. Happy to sell it for you and sell it to you. Marg also loves it. Well, we might start an auction right here. Robert Hudson, do you always seal an acrylic painting when it's finished? Yeah, generally if I'm going to sell it, then I'll put a varnish on it, definitely. I think it's probably just good practice because it seals the paint from being damaged by dust and other atmospheric conditions. All right, we haven't got much time left, and I feel like the best question hasn't been asked yet. So I'm going to give you all a chance to fire away with your best question. The one you've been burning to ask, but you haven't been afraid to. Valerie says, answer my question, just have to apply it. Yeah, that's often the hardest part of painting, isn't it? And life in general. Hey, now if you're joining us for the very first time, at the Learn to Paint Academy, we give away a free painting course. It's called Learn to Paint Introduction Course. And in there I go through the principles, the Moore method of painting in much greater detail. And there's 4 complete painting demonstrations. So everything we've talked about today, the 5 keys to painting, I cover all of that in the 4 different painting demonstrations. And all you need to do, if you haven't done so already, then I highly recommend it. Especially if you enjoy our live streams, because this is what we're going to be talking about, is what you'll find in this free course. So it's www.learntopaint.info. Right? Go there, register yourself in the free course, it's 2 or 3 hours worth of instruction there. We give it away so that you can have an opportunity to experience what we do. I'm a passionate believer that the Moore method of painting is a great way for beginners to get started and intermediate painters to improve. So I want to share it with as many people as I can. And we have lots of paid courses as well if you want to go further, but we try and make at least one of our courses for free. So go and register for that, and I know you'll enjoy it. We get lots and lots of positive feedback, so people have definitely been enjoying it. Gladys asks, when painting plein air, does it matter what type of canvas you use? Okay, that is a good question. That is a good question. Yes, it matters. So let me just repeat the question. When painting plein air, does it matter what type of canvas that you use? And is a board better? Now, that is a good question, because experience will teach you the answer to this. So if you paint on canvas, like a stretch canvas like this, actually I might be able to take it off. It hasn't got any paint on the bottom. So if I put that up on my plein air painting easel, right? The problem with using a canvas, plein air, is that the sun comes straight through behind it, because you always want to make sure the surface you're working on is in shadow. It doesn't have direct sunlight on it, right? But by virtue of that, it means the sun's usually around behind and it comes straight through. So painting on canvas, very, very difficult plein air. You need a backing board to block the sun, right? So yes, it does matter. It does make a difference. So for that reason, you'll see most plein air artists will be working on MDF board, right? So this is the board that you buy it in a big sheet. It's dirt cheap. I get Bunnings, which is our local hardware store here. I get them to cut it into small pieces, and then I put gesso and house ceiling paint and stuff on it. And this is a solid surface, so the light doesn't come through it. So very important, very important. It'll make your life a lot easier as a plein air painter. It's also a hell of a lot cheaper. Whoops. That's not what we want to happen on a live stream. I knew I shouldn't have picked it up. It's a hell of a lot cheaper. So you'll save yourself some money. I've got paint on my hand now. Not to worry. So if you want to know how to do that, I've done a art studio chat on how to prepare your own MDF boards. So go and check that out. All right, Miriam. So Gladys, right now you're definitely in the front runner. Actually, I think you may have one before that, Gladys, haven't you? You have to remind me. Miriam, are paid ads on Facebook and Instagram worth the money? Should I take the plunge? No, they probably won't work for you if you're trying to sell artwork. So I would suggest don't do that. Just put more into the market, more pieces of artwork into the marketplace where people are buying artwork. Facebook, you can easily blow thousands of dollars. I spend a lot of money on Facebook ads, but I've worked out a system that I can recover that money to be able to reinvest it. It's difficult to do that selling one-off pieces of artwork, so I do not recommend, I hope it's not damaged as well, but it looks okay. I do not recommend spending money on advertising, Facebook advertising to sell one-off original pieces of artwork. Save your money. for a whole host of reasons, which I think is probably too technical to get into here. But pardon me, you'll blow your money. Carolyn, is there a gesso for oils and a different one for acrylics? Doesn't seem to matter. In fact, I've started using house plasterboard ceiling paint, white paint for coating that. So I use that to really seal the board, and then I just put one coat of gesso. It doesn't really matter what sort of gesso, really. Hi Julie Chadwick, how are you? Heather, does painting on canvas plein air dry faster than board? Not necessarily, no. Depends on the quality of the canvas. So I don't think it does dry faster. I haven't had a huge amount of experience with canvas plein air, but as far as I can tell, it doesn't seem to dry faster. But some canvases are more absorbent of moisture than others. Depends on the quality and the thickness of the canvas and so on. So yeah, Rosalie, I sent info a little while ago as requested about myself as an MCI. I can't see anything. No, I haven't updated the page yet, Rosalie, for a few different reasons. So I'll keep you posted about that. There's nobody listed there at the moment, so that's the reason why. Okay, we're going to wrap this up. Okay, so Gladys has got a DVD from a previous giveaway, so I need to pick another winner for our coffee mug. Let me go back and scroll through the questions. Collins asks, would like to try water-soluble oils. Can you please advise again regarding where we can source them? Pretty much any art supplies store, Colin. Mate, what I'd suggest is, because you're in Australia, go to any of your local suppliers of Montmart products and try the H2O. That's Montmart's student quality water mixable oils, and they're cheap, right? Very cheap. So start out with those, see if you like it, and then you can order. But like any Art Shed online, you can go to their website and order any art supplies you want from them. Yeah, but most art supplies stores do have water mixable oils these days. Okay, I'm going to give it to Andrea Reeves. Andrea, you've won a coffee mug, Learn to Paint coffee mug. Congratulations. For your question, how do you know if and when a painting is good enough to sell? I think it's a good question. So congratulations. If you go to learntopaint.support, contact our support desk, tell them what you've won and give us your postal address, then we will send you out a Learn to Paint coffee mug. And then you can look at my ugly mug whenever you have coffee, right? So congratulations. All right, everyone. Well, I think that pretty well wraps up another coffee chat session. Thank you all for joining me. And I'm trying to think. It's something I had to tell you quite important, and I've just remembered what it is. Next Wednesday we won't be having a live stream. I'm putting a painting into a large art show here in the Noosa area, and Wednesday morning is the morning we have to take the painting down, and that could take a few hours. So won't be here next Wednesday, but we'll be back for next Friday for our coffee chat, and then that will probably, let me just have a look, that'll take us to the end of November, and so I'm probably only going to do the first week in December with live streams and Learn to Paint TV and so on, and then I'm going to take a break because I'm going down to Melbourne, so we'll probably finish the first week of December will be our last live streams for the year. So that means we've got 2 more coffee chats and 1 more painting live stream painting session. So I hope you can join me for those. For those who are asking questions about selling your artwork and pricing your artwork and how do I sell it and stuff, I'm going to go to my Facebook page now, Learn to Paint Academy. I'm going to repost the hour and a long bit session on how to get started selling your artwork. So please go and look for that. And if you watch that and you're interested in joining us, a small group for our 12-week coaching program, which is all about online, selling your artwork online, please message me and I'll give you the details for that. Always keep it to a small group so that I can make sure I have time to chat with you and answer your questions and so on. And yeah, thank you all for joining me. Look forward to chatting with you all again. It'll be next Friday now. So until then, be well and happy painting. Enjoy your painting. Most important of all is to have fun while you're painting. Alrighty, cheers for now.